Stone, bread, and candlelight, nothing urgent tonight. Adjust to a comfortable volume and settle in. Let the story drift you to sleep. Rest well. At the far edge of the market quarter, where the cobbles give way to packed earth and sheds lean together like old neighbors, stands the potter's yard. It is a place of clay and quiet fire, of slow shaping hands and heat that turns earth to something lasting. A low wall encloses the yard, and over its gate hangs a sign carved with a simple jug. Inside, the smell is a mix of damp earth, wood smoke, and the faint metallic tang of cooling glaze. Before dawn, the potter, Marceline, wakes. He is a broad-shouldered man with arms shaped by years of wedging clay and hefting jugs. His clothes are plain, patched with clay stains that will never wash out. He crosses the yard in boots whitened by dried slip, lantern swinging in one hand. The kiln still breathes faint warmth from yesterday's firing. A soft red glow winks in the cracks. Marceline smiles, another good night's burn. He begins by turning the wheel where unfinished bowls dried overnight. Each piece is lifted gently, checked for cracks, and set on boards in the morning air. The clay smells cool and clean, damp as a riverbank. He hums under his breath while he works, a tune as slow as the wheels spin. From a covered pit he digs fresh clay, heavy and cold, and wedges it on a low table, folding and pressing until it is smooth and free of bubbles. The workshop is simple but orderly. A long bench holds tools, ribs of wood and bone, wire cutters, small knives, and a sponge dark with use. Shelves climb the walls, lined with jugs, mugs, and platters in various stages, some soft and pale, some dry and chalky, some already glazed with colors dulled until fire wakes them. Against one wall squats the great kiln, built of brick and clay, its arched mouth dark for now but still whispering heat. As dawn brightens, Marceline's apprentice arrives. Young Etienne, sleepy-eyed but eager, he carries a basket of sticks for the kiln and greets his master with a grin. Marceline points him to the wheel. The boy begins to center a lump of clay, hands clumsy at first, but improving under the patient gaze of his teacher. The wheel hums, the clay rises, and a simple cup begins to take shape. Marceline sits at his own wheel. His hands are sure, coaxing a tall jug from a heavy mound. Water slicks the clay, gleaming in morning light. With each gentle pull, the form lifts, base widening, neck narrowing, lip flaring. He speaks softly to Etienne about pressure and balance, about listening to the clay as much as commanding it. The boy nods, though most of his understanding comes through the slow apprenticeship of watching and trying. When a shape pleases him, Marceline wires it free from the wheel and sets it on a bat to firm. He moves on to another, hands rhythmic, patient. Clay work is it rushed. Between pieces he checks yesterday's glaze tests. Small tiles dipped in varying mixtures of ash, copper, and lead, now cooled from the kiln. He rubs one with a thumb and smiles at the green sheen where copper caught well. By mid-morning, the yard comes alive with small visitors. A neighbor brings warm bread in thanks for a mended water jar. A passing merchant stops to order stout mugs for his crew. Marceline greets them kindly but keeps his hands working. He measures capacity by eye, sketches a quick jug mark with a wet finger, promises the merchant a set before harvest. The wheel turns on, steady as breath. Etienne, meanwhile, learns the craft's small chores. He carries yesterday's dry bowls to the trimming bench, where Marceline shows how to shave foot rings and smooth edges. The shavings curl away like pale peel. The boy listens to talk of firing, how pots must be dry as bone before entering the kiln, how to stack them so heat flows evenly, how to read the kiln's eye by color rather than trust a mere clock. As noon nears, they break to eat bread and cheese beneath the shade of a fig tree in the yard's corner. The tree is old and twisted, planted by Marceline's father, and offers quiet refuge from clay and heat. They talk little, the work itself fills the mind. Birds hop close for crumbs. A breeze stirs the hanging boards of drying bowls, setting a soft clatter like distant chimes. After eating, they begin to load the kiln. This is a craft of patience and geometry. Marceline crouches to place each piece, bowls nested but not touching, jugs turned so their handles face the gentle draught, larger platters set on edge with spaces of clay. Etienne passes him the ware one by one, careful as if handing eggs. The kiln swallows their labor piece by piece, until its belly is full. Then the mouth is bricked shut with clay-sealed gaps, and the fire is coaxed awake. Etienne feeds small sticks at first, then larger wood as the heat builds. The kiln breathes and grows, brick by brick warming to a ruddy glow. Marceline watches the fire's color and smoke, adjusting the air holes, teaching the boy how to listen for the low roar that means heat is right. There is no rushing this. The firing will last into the night. While the kiln climbs toward its deep heat, other work continues. Marceline throws more pots, his wheel singing with the rhythm of hands and clay. Etienne glazes yesterday's bisqueware, dipping mugs into creamy slips that will dry chalky but wake as color after firing. Ash glaze for warm browns, copper for greens, tin for pale milk white. The boy experiments with a single tile, sneaking a swirl of two colors. Marceline notices, but only smiles. Customers return in afternoon light. A farmer needs a butter crock. A young couple wants a simple jug for wedding wine. Marceline listens, measures with his hands, promises. Some barter with eggs, some with coin, some with a day's wood for the kiln. The yard is part shop, part meeting place. News flows with trade. Someone mentions a good harvest of barley, someone else a coming festival. Work and life weave easily here. The kiln grows fierce as dusk nears. Its mouth pulses orange behind the sealed brick. Heat presses the yard with a dry breath, and the smell shifts from wood smoke to something richer, almost sweet, clay transforming under fire. Marceline stirs the flames with a long iron and peers into the peephole. The pots within glow cherry red, their shapes soft with heat but strong with promise. He nods, satisfied. Etienne tends the woodpile, learning the rhythm. Slow feeding keeps heat even, sudden flame and warp or crack. Marceline explains how the fire must climb and then hold, how to read the kiln's cone of heat by watching a slender rod of clay bend at the right temperature. The boy's face shines with sweat and pride. This is knowledge passed more by doing than by words. Night deepens. Stars wheel over the yard, and the kiln still roars softly, alive as a great beast. Marcelin and Etienne take turns feeding wood, sitting near the glow between shifts. They speak quietly of clay veins in the hills, of glazes that surprise, of pots that fail and teach humility. Marcelin tells of his father's first kiln collapse and how they rebuilt better. The boy listens wide-eyed, warmed by story and fire alike. Sometimes neighbors stop by, drawn by the glow. A cobbler brings ale and stays to watch a while, swapping gossip. A baker's wife brings sweet rolls for the long night. Children peer through the fence, marveling at the dragon breath of flame. The yard becomes a little festival of its own, quiet but companionable. When the firing reaches its peak, Marcelin closes vents and lets the heat soak deep. He knows by feel and by sight when enough has been done. Then the long wait begins. The kiln must cool slowly, sometimes a day or more, before it can be opened. The night fire is banked to coals. The roaring beast sighs down to a steady hum. They sit together on low stools, watching sparks climb into the dark. Etienne nods with weariness but pride. Marcelin smiles and lets him doze, cloak pulled around his small shoulders. The master keeps watch, listening to the kiln's settling cracks, the gentle night sounds beyond the wall. An owl, a distant dog, the river's hush. This is a potter's vigil, neither lonely nor hurried. When the boy wakes, stars have paled and the kiln breathes only warmth. They bank the last coals and go inside the workshop to sleep on cots near the clay bench. The room smells of earth and smoke and work well done. Marcelin writes a few notes in his ledger: clay from the south pit, wood from Rule's yard, glaze mix that took green well, and sets his quill aside. Morning will bring the joy of opening, breaking the clay seal, lifting each cooled piece into light, marveling at colors and strength, grieving quietly for any cracked or warped. But that is tomorrow's pleasure. Tonight, or what is left of it, belongs to rest. Marcelin stretches out on his cot, hands behind his head. Etienne curls in a ball, exhausted but happy. The kiln's faint heat keeps the chill at bay. Beyond the yard, the town sleeps, unaware of the quiet transformation happening here. Mud becoming vessel, craft becoming permanence. As sleep claims the potter, he thinks not of profit but of use, of water carried, bread stored, wine poured, flowers held. He thinks of homes lit by the shine of his glazed bowls, of children drinking from sturdy cups, of weddings and wakes where his work will serve. Fire and earth, guided by patient hands, will outlast the night. The kiln clicks softly as it cools, a lullaby of settling brick. In its heart, rows of pots cool in darkness, ready to join the town's quiet life. The master and the boy sleep on, tired and content, while stars fade and the bell tower beyond the roofs prepares to call another day. On a side street just off the bustling market square stands the Stag and Willow, an alehouse known for its sturdy oak beams and the warmth of its hearth. By day it fills with merchants and townsfolk taking bread and beer. By night it glows with talk and song. Beneath it, though, lies a quieter world, the alehouse cellar, cool and earthen, where barrels sleep and brewing secrets live in the dark. At first light, before any guest comes knocking, the alewife Martha pushes open the heavy trapdoor behind the bar. A breath of cool, damp air greets it, carrying scents of yeast, oak, and deep soil. She takes the narrow stair, lantern in one hand, skirts tucked clear. Her boots find each stone step by memory. She has walked this way since she was a girl, first helping her father, now mistress of the house herself. The cellar spreads low and wide under the building, its walls brick and fieldstone, its floor hard packed earth. Barrels stand in neat rows like squat, patient sentries. Some are banded with bright new iron, others dark with age and seeped stains. Against one wall sits the mash tun, a great round vat used for steeping grain, and beside it a row of copper kettles for boiling the sweet wort. Ropes of drying herbs, hops, yarrow, rosemary, hang from the beams. Martha sets her lantern on a hook and inspects the barrels. She listens first, knocking each with knuckles and ear closed for the right hollow sound. A good cask sings deep and sure. If one sounds dull, she marks it for checking. She runs a hand along staves, feeling for leaks, sniffing for sourness that means the beer inside may have turned. Her fingers are stained from years of work. She trusts them more than any fancy tool. At the far end stands her apprentice, young Robin, still rubbing sleep from his eyes. He has come early to learn the brewer's craft. Martha nods toward the barrels needing topping up. Together they climb a low stool to fill them with fresh beer from the copper vats above, working a hand pump that sighs and gurgles as amber liquid flows. The scent rises warm and bready, rich with malt. Once the topping is done, they draw samples with a slender wooden thief, a tube plunged into the barrel and lifted full. Martha sniffs, tastes, and lets the liquid roll across her tongue. She is listening for balance, malt sweetness, hop bite, a whisper of yeast. Robin tries, coughs at the bitterness, then nods with watery eyes. Martha chuckles softly, remembering her first tastes years ago. The mash tun calls next. Today they brew a fresh batch for the coming festival. Martha stirs the mash, a porridge of barley and wheat, steeped in hot water with a long oar-like paddle. Steam clouds the air, scented with grain and sweetness. Robin adds bundles of dried herbs, hops for keeping, a little rosemary for flavor. They talk quietly as they work, about harvest prices, about the need for patience, about never rushing the boil. After the mash rests and drains, they transfer the sweet liquid to the copper kettles to boil. Robin keeps the fire steady with oak logs, feeding slowly so heat stays even. Martha sprinkles in more hops at just the right moment. The cellar fills with a fragrant fog, warm and comforting. Overhead, the tavern is still silent save for a few settling beams, but down here life hums with quiet purpose. Once the boil is done, they cool the wort by running it through a trough lined with clean river stones. Steam curls upward in twisting ghosts. Moth tests temperature with a bare finger, trusting her own sense more than numbers. When it is right, they draw it into waiting barrels where yeast has been readied. The yeast comes from a pot kept like a pet, fed and tended each week. Robin peers in with fascination as the froth comes alive. Fermentation begins almost at once. A faint fizz, a subtle scent like bread dough and apples fills the air. Moth watches a moment satisfied. She teaches Robin how to keep the barrels loosely lidded, how to listen for the singing of healthy yeast, how to skim off froth if it grows too wild. Brewing is as much watching as doing, she says. The beer itself must be allowed to work. Mid-morning brings a delivery, a cooper rolling fresh barrels down the stairs with practiced care. He and Martha exchange greetings and a bit of gossip about a merchant's new wagon and the price of iron hoops. Robin helps guide the barrels into place, learning how to check a stave for cracks and an iron band for soundness. Tools clink softly. The cooper smells of wood smoke and pine pitch. When he leaves, Martha tips him a mug from yesterday's brew, and he drinks with a grateful nod before heading out. Soon after, the first tavern boy appears to draw beer for the day's trade. He fills earthen jugs and carries them up to the hall, where merchants and travelers will drink come noon. Moth checks his tally and warns him not to slosh, a lesson he's learned the hard way before. Robin watches, wide-eyed, understanding now how the cellar feeds the life above. Every song, every bargain, every laugh upstairs begins with the quiet work here. By midday, the cellar grows warm from the brewing fires, though its stone walls keep a gentle coolness. Martha and Robin take bread, cheese, and a jug of small beer to a bench near the barrels. They eat in companionable silence, listening to the faint bubbling of fermenting casks. Robin asks about the first time Martha brewed alone. She tells him of a batch gone sour and the long lesson it taught. Respect the yeast, keep everything clean, and never hurry. After the meal, they clean. Brewing is half cleaning, Martha says. They scrub the mash tun with boiling water and fresh brooms, scour the copper kettles until they shine like autumn sun, sweep grain husks from the floor. Robin groans at the work but learns its rhythm: soap, rinse, dry, polish. The cellar smells fresher afterward, earthy but orderly. Afternoon brings visitors. A local merchant comes to taste and order for an upcoming feast. Martha draws him a mug from a cask she knows is ready. He sips, nods, and haggles a little, but not much. Martha's ale is respected. A pair of traveling pilgrims stops to ask for small beer for their journey. She fills their flasks at fair price and blesses their road. Robin listens, noting how trade and hospitality mingle in this cool place. As daylight wanes, the tavern above begins to wake. Footsteps thump, chairs scrape, voices rise. The air grows warmer with cooking smells drifting down the stair. Onions frying, bread toasting, meat simmering in a pot. Moth smiles. Tonight the house will be full, and the ale must flow true. She and Robin tap a few ready barrels, driving spigots with a mallet, testing flow and clarity. Amber streams smooth and steady into test mugs. They drink small sips to check taste. When the first guests arrive above, the cellar grows busier. tavern boys run up and down with jugs. Marth keeps a careful tally with chalk on a board. Robin fetches fresh spigots, wipes drips, and learns to gauge when a barrel is nearly empty by its sound when tapped. Sometimes Marth sends him up with a jug himself, trusting him to carry without spill and return with empty vessel and payment. Between rushes, Marth tends the fermenting casks, skimming froth and whispering a brewer's small prayers. She shows Robin how to taste with a clean spoon, how to know if a beer will turn sharp or stay sweet. They stand listening to the soft, living murmur of yeast at work. In its own way, the cellar sings as surely as the tavern hall above. Later, when the night grows lively with song and laughter overhead, the cellar remains calm. Only the muffled beat of feet and voices filters down, mixed with the warm smell of food. Here work continues steady and unhurried. Marth refills jugs, checks casks, and teaches Robin how to rack beer into new barrels for storage. He pumps, she guides, both moving with the easy rhythm of practiced craft. Sometimes a guest wanders down by mistake, drunk or curious. Marth greets them kindly but firm, steering them back up with a mug to distract and a quiet word to the tavern keeper to mind the door. The cellar is no place for stumbling feet. Too much here can be spoiled by a careless move. Robin sees and learns the quiet strength in her manner. By late night, the rush slows. The last barrels tapped for the evening sigh nearly empty. Marth and Robin wipe spills, hammer bungs back into casks, and stack empties to be cleaned tomorrow. The brewing fires are long banked, but the new batch bubbles softly, a promise for the coming days. They stand a moment, lanterns low, breathing the mingled scents of malt, wood, and yeast, a smell that is both labor and life. When the tavern upstairs quiets and chairs scrape for the last time, Marth climbs to settle the day's accounts. Robin stays to sweep the floor, proud and weary. He stacks mugs, rinses the mash paddle, banks the hearth's coals. When she returns, she hands him a small coin and a nod of approval. He grins, knowing it means more than gold. They close the trapdoor at last. Above, the tavern sleeps with its scent of spilled beer and cooked meat. Below, the cellar rests cool and alive with slow fermentation. Barrels line the dock like silent guests waiting for their turn at the feast of life. The brewing tools hang neat, the fires are out, and the yeast works on unseen. Marth steps into the night, Robin trailing. The street smells of damp stone and the faint echo of song. Stars gleam over roof lines, and the bell tower stands dark against them. Tomorrow the brewing will go on. Grain to mash, fires to tend, barrels to fill. Tonight the quiet cellar dreams under the alehouse, a cool heart beating beneath laughter and story. Tucked near the river, where water runs steady and clean, the town bathhouse keeps a warm heart through every season. From outside it looks plain, a long timber hall with a low roof vented to let steam escape in soft plumes. Yet as one draws near, the scent of hot water and herbs drifts out to meet the street, and a quiet murmur of voices joins the river song. Here townsfolk come to wash away dust and weariness, to share small talk, and to find a little warmth when days grow cold. At first light, Mistress Heaverwise, keeper of the bath, unbars the wide oak door. She is brisk and practical, with a linen kerchief over her hair and arms bare to the elbow. Her husband is already outside drawing water with the help of a mule and a great wheel. Buckets rise glistening from the river and pour into troughs that feed the stone-heated cauldrons. Steam begins to curl upward as fires are coaxed to life beneath the copper kettles. Inside, the bathhouse smells of wood smoke, soap, and damp timber. The main room is long, with benches along the walls and a series of shallow tubs set on raised planks. Smaller screened alcoves line one side for those who want privacy. The rest is open, cheerful space. Light slips through latticed windows and dances on the haze of early steam. A large brazier sits in the center, glowing as it warms the air. Heatherwise begins her work. She scrubs the tubs with stiff brooms, scattering herbs into each, rosemary, meadowsweet, and thyme, to sweeten the water and soothe skin. She sets out bundles of clean linen cloths for drying, hung on pegs within reach. Wooden stools are placed near each tub, and a row of sandals stands ready for bare feet to slip into. Her husband stirs the cauldrons, testing heat with a long paddle. They work wordlessly, a dance practiced by years of mornings. Soon, the first visitors arrive, an elderly cooper with aching knees, a midwife weary from a night's delivery. Two miller's boys splash with flour. They greet Heloise warmly and pay their coins before setting cloaks on pegs. One by one they step into the steam-filled room, sighing as heat and scent embrace them. The cooper eases himself into a tub with a groan that melts into relief. The midwife wraps her hair in a cloth and settles gratefully, closing her eyes. The bathhouse hums quietly as more arrive. A baker's wife with flour on her sleeves, a journeyman tanner still faintly smelling of hides, a pair of traveling merchants glad for a proper wash. There is laughter but gentle, muted by steam. Voices rise and fall with the splash of water. Some talk of weather and market prices, others simply rest, eyes half closed, letting warmth chase away the ache of work. Heatherwise moves among them with a bucket and ladder, offering more hot water or a dash of scented herbs. She checks fires beneath the kettles and adds wood where needed. Her husband carries cooled river water in yokes to temper the tubs if they grow too hot. The room fills with fragrant mist, the scent of clean skin and rosemary rising as subtle music. At one side of the hall is a small table for barbering and minor care. Today a traveling barber rents the space. He trims hair, shaves faces, and even lances a small boil for a grateful farmer. Heloise keeps his basin filled and his towels warm. Children watch, wide-eyed, as razors flash and steam curls around the quiet work. Mid-morning is the busiest. Women cluster in one corner, washing hair with ash soap and laughing softly. Men soak in deep silence or talk in murmured tones of harvest and trade. A pair of pilgrims, their boots caked from long miles, sigh with bliss as they ease into heat for the first dive in weeks. Heloise offers them bread and small beer while they wait for tubs to cool enough to enter. Hospitality is part of the bath's crafts. In an alcove, a mother bathes an infant in a shallow basin, crooning lullabies that mingle with the hiss of water. The baby's laughter rings bright for a moment before quiet returns. In another corner, two old friends scrub each other's backs with linen cloths, telling stories of the town when it was smaller and the fields came closer to the gates. Outside, the river keeps bringing fresh water. The mule turns the wheel with steady patience, and the cauldrons bubble. Heloise's husband skims foam and keeps fire steady. He adds fragrant herbs from a small garden behind the bathhouse, mint, sage, lavender, tied in bundles that float like small boats on the cauldron's surface. Steam rises thick and white into the morning sky. By noon, the first wave departs, leaving coins and thanks. Heavywise empties used tubs and scrubs them clean, her arms slick with steam and water. She wrings out cloths to hang for drying and sprinkles fresh herbs. The air is warm and damp, but she moves with tireless energy, knowing more guests will come after the day's work slows. The afternoon brings a gentler pace. Artisans arrive, a weaver with sore shoulders, a goldsmith squinting from long hours at delicate work, a young clerk smudged with ink. They sink into warmth and let silence heal what labor has knotted. Heloise makes small conversation when wanted, but mostly she grants the gift of space and care. The bathhouse feels like a great exhale. Now and then she performs small remedies learned from her mother, a poultice of chamomile for tired eyes, a dab of honey and salt for cracked hands, a mug of warm herb tea to ease a chest cough. She is no physician, but her quiet skill comforts many. Robin from the alehouse stops by with a jug of fresh small beer. She trades him a pouch of mint for his brewing. Late afternoon light turns the steam golden. The noise overhead market and smithy fades as workers finish their day. More folk arrive to wash before evening meals, fathers with children, friends who meet to soak and speak softly of family or dreams. The bathhouse glows in its own warmth, the river outside gleaming with sunset. As night comes, the fires are banked lower. Hewise closes the outer door, but lets latecomers finish their bathing. The air cools slowly. The last guests linger, reluctant to leave the comfort of heat and fellowship. One old man hums a tune that echoes sweetly in the rafters. Others join softly, voices blending with the hiss of dying steam. When the final bather departs, Heloise and her husband work in companionable quiet. They scrub the last tubs, sweep the wet floor, and hang linen to dry in the warm rafters. The herbs are refreshed for tomorrow, the fires are left as glowing embers. Tools are rinsed and hung, buckets turned upside down to drain. The bathhouse exhales a long, damp sigh and settles into stillness. Before leaving, Heavywise stands in the doorway, lantern in hand. She looks back on the empty hall, tubs gleaming faintly, benches dry, steam drifting away like the day's cares. She smiles, weary but content. This place has washed a town clean, not just of sweat but of worry. It has given warmth where cold clung, and quiet where noise ruled. She and her husband step into the cool night. The river hums softly. Distant bells mark curfew. Behind them the bathhouse keeps its gentle heat, ready to welcome tomorrow's bodies and stories. The lantern light fades as they walk home, tired but at peace, knowing they have tended more than water, they have tended hearts. Every household, whether poor cottage or modest manor, lived by its kitchen fire. In a tie before matches or gas, before quick stoves or steady ovens, cooking was slow craft built from patience and wood smoke. To step into a medieval kitchen was to enter the warm, breathing heart of the home, where bread and broth shaped daily life and the rhythm of meals gave quiet order to the year. At dawn, the hearth came alive. Someone, often the mistress or an older child, rose first to coax embers left from night beneath ash. Dry twigs and straw flared, then thicker logs caught, filling room with first scent of smoke. Sparks leapt at the hooded chimney or drifted if no flue existed. Light deepened from red to gold as flame grew. Kettle or cauldron hung from iron crane, pothooks clinked as they swung into place. The space itself was simple but clever. In peasant cottages, kitchen and living room were often one. A central open hearth burned on stone slab, with low stool or bench nearby. Walls darkened by years of smoke, herbs hung drying from rafters. More prosperous homes might boast wide stone fireplace with hood and chimney, keeping smoke drawn away. Pots of iron or bronze, wooden ladles, knives, and grinding stones filled shelves. Larger houses had separate kitchens to keep smoke and risk of fire away from hall, airy rooms, with big ovens, long tables, and a staff of cooks, spitboys, and scullions. Cooking began early. Porridge simmered for breakfast, oats, barley, or rye boiled in water or milk if luck allowed, bread baked if dough ready. In poorer homes, flat cakes cooked on hearthstone, while wealthier households sent loaves to communal oven. Leftover broth from night before might be warmed, thick with cabbage, beans, or a bone for flavor. Children ate quickly before chores, adults took bowls as they worked. Through morning, kitchen filled with sound and motion, grinding quernstones for flour or meal, chopping herbs with curved knife, pounding garlic or nuts in mortar. Spinning and mending might happen nearby while pot bubbled, fire wasted no nine. Soot drifted from logs, cats prowled for scraps, hens sometimes wandered if door open. The smell of wood smoke, onion, and bread clung to every garment. Fuel was precious. Wood gathered and dried all summer. In some places peat or dried dung burned instead. Fires banked carefully to last day, a bed of coals buried under ash to keep spark alive for tomorrow. Matches unknown, flint and steel slow, so keeping fire was daily duty. Wealthier houses kept multiple hearths, boiling, baking, roasting on spit turned by boy or dog-powered wheel. Midday meal, dinner, was main feast for ordinary folk. Thick pottage with whatever garden gave, leeks, kale, turnips, beans, bits of salted pork or bacon if family had pig, fish on Fridays and fast days, eggs when hens obliged, herbs bright in flavor, parsley, sage, thyme, dill. Bread was constant companion, dark rye for poor, lighter wheat if field good. In summer, fresh cheese and fruit might appear, in winter, preserved apples or dried peas. Wealthier kitchens bustled with more, roasting spit laden with beef or venison, pastry pies filled with rabbit, pudding steamed in cloth, delicate sauces of wine and spice. Cooks were skilled artisans, their rank high in household. Scullions scrubbed pots blackened from endless fire. Spitboys sweated turning heavy meat day long. Stewards checked stores, salt barrels, smoked hams, sacks of grain, imported pepper dear as gold. Seasons dictated everything. Spring brought greens, first milk, eggs after winter lean. Summer gave abundance, berries, fresh vegetables, full dairies, but required drying and pickling for lean times. Autumn busiest, slaughter of pigs, curing bacon and hams, storing apples and nuts, brewing beer. Winter meant careful rationing, reliance on salted and dried foods, and long, slow stews to warm, cold rooms. Festive cooking transformed kitchen. For saints' days or weddings, great breads braided and sweetened, pies spiced and decorated, mead and ale brewed stronger. Neighbors might gather to help slaughter and roast whole animals. Ovens filled day and night. Children darted underfoot, stealing bits. Minstrels or priests might drop by for taste and blessing. Hygiene and fire danger were constant worry. Sparks could leap to thatch, buckets of sand or water kept ready, ash swept daily but soot built thick on beams, water fetched from well or stream, sometimes carried far, made every wash effort. Yet kitchens kept surprisingly orderly. Knives hung neat, grain safe from mice, herbs labeled by habit. Conversation filled space. Women shared gossip while kneading dough. Men repaired tools by hearth. Children learned recipes by watching, repeating chants or prayers believed to bless bread. Tales told of saints who multiplied loaves or cursed spoiled beer. The kitchen was classroom and living room as well as workshop. Evening meal. Supper, lighter but comforting. Leftover pottage thinned, bread toasted on hearth, small cheese or cured meat sliced. Candles or rushlights lit room with soft gold, smoke curled up as night deepened. After eating, ashes banked, pots scoured with sand or lye, scraps given to animals. Family might sit a while by fading coals, talking or praying. For travelers and strangers, the sight of kitchen fire meant welcome. Hospitable homes offered broth and bread. Monasteries fed pilgrims from great refectories linked to their own busy kitchens. Even the poorest cottage would share pottage if guest appeared, believing charity holy. Though humble, the medieval kitchen was stage for life itself. Birth and healing, feasts and famine, love and quarrel, prayer and laughter. Its smoke rose each day, tying earth's labor to body's need. So when imagining medieval home, begin here at the kitchen hearth, where slow fire and quiet skill turned grain to bread and simple labor to warmth. It was the heart that kept family alive through long centuries, one steady meal at a time. If the village bakehouse and alehouse fed the daily life of peasants and travelers, then the great hall of a castle or manor showed food as celebration and power. To step into such a hall on feast night was to walk into light and warmth beyond ordinary measure. Banners fluttering high on timbered roof, fires roaring in open hearth, tables heavy with bread and meat, music weaving through the smell of roasting and spice. A feast began long before the first guest arrived. Days earlier, kitchen staff stirred to action. Butchers slaughtered pigs, oxen, or sheep. Hunters brought deer or boar from Lord's forest. Fishmongers hauled carp, trout, or salted herring. Women plucked geese and hens, scrubbed roots, ground spices. In pantry, sacks of flour stacked high. Cellarers rolled up casks of ale and wine. Kitchens hummed with chopping, clatter of pots, and steady heat of great stone hearths. Spices signaled wealth. Pepper, cinnamon, ginger, saffron, costly and precious, were weighed carefully from little boxes. Even a pinch could transform plain broth to luxurious. Sugar, rare and white, sweetened subtleties, delicate molded sweets shaped like castles or beasts. Honey thickened sauces, almonds ground to milk for fast days. The cook, often highly skilled and respected, planned courses like a quiet general of taste. On feast day morning, hall was dressed for glory. Rushes swept clean and sometimes strewn fresh with herbs for scent. Tapestries hung to block draughts and show scenes of battles or saints. Benches and trestle tables unfolded, polished if Lord wished to impress. At one end, high dais raised Lord's table above rest, with carved chairs and sometimes canopy. Silver and pewter gleamed, candles were readied in tall stands, musicians tuned lute, harp, or pipe. Guests arrived from miles around, vassals, knights, abbots, neighboring lords, merchants of favor, sometimes traveling minstrels or pilgrims lucky enough, cloaks brushed off mud, swords left at door if peace required. Greetings rang loud. Peasants rarely sat, but might watch from edges or serve, catching wonder at splendor. First course was always bread and ale, soft manche loaves for high table, darker rounds for others. Steaming trenchers, thick slices of stale bread, were set to hold meat and soak juices. Then came pottage rich with herbs and marrow bones, roasted fowl, great haunches of venison, pies stuffed with rabbit or eel, platters passed hand to hand, carving knives flashing, din rows of laughter, toasts, and hungry praise. Between courses, servants cleared trenches, sometimes giving soaked bread to poor waiting outside gates. New dishes followed, fish baked whole with herbs, custards, sausages, game birds decorated with feathers to appear alive, enormous tarts hiding live songbirds for surprise. Each marvel displayed lord's wealth and cook's art. Drink flowed, strong ale for many, wine for nobles, red from Gascony, sweet white from Rhine, goblets clinked, toasts made to health, alliance, or victory. Minstrels sang ballads of lords' ancestors or love songs to delight ladies. Jugglers, fools, or dancers performed between courses. Falconers showed birds, trained dogs or bears amused. Yet amid splendor, order ruled. Steward oversaw service, marshalling servants with silent gestures. Carver at high table sliced meat with practiced grace. Cup-bearer guarded lord's drink from poison. Dishes followed pattern, remove, roast, subtlety, sweet, according to medieval banquet custom. Breaking this rhythm was shameful unless Lord commanded surprise. Faith wove through feast, grace said before and after, sometimes friar or chaplain blessed table. Saints' days added special prayers and offerings. Meatless Fridays turned feast to fish and cheese, but kept same grandeur. Candles glowed near relic, if hall had one. Seasons shaped menu and mood. Winter feasts blazed with boar's head, spiced wine, and roaring fires. Spring brought lamb, greens, and songs of renewal. Summer feasts often moved to courtyards or gardens with fountains and fresh fruit. Autumn after harvest gave greatest bounty, geese, nuts, new ale, and wild game. Not every guest shared equally. Nobles dined on silver, lower folk on wood or pewter, yet all ate better than on common days. Leftovers often distributed to poor, a sign of lordly generosity. Servants slipped scraps to dogs waiting under tables. Night deepened hall, glowed golden. Fires roared, candles flickered on high beams, shadows danced with laughter. Stories of hunts, wars, pilgrimages filled air. Some men grew merry, others thoughtful. Some slipped to corners for secret talk of trade or alliance. Lovers exchanged glances. Children nodded asleep on benches. When feast ended, it ended slowly. Dishes cleared, minstrels played soft farewell, guests thanked host. Some slept in guest chambers, others rode by lantern light to manor or village. Servants scrubbed and banked fires till only warm ashes and faint spice smell remained. A great hall feast was more than eating. It bound lord and people, showed wealth and welcome, celebrated seasons and victories. It turned harsh world soft for a night. So remember, when thinking of medieval food, Not only humble bread and ale, but also the nights when doors flung wide and music, laughter, and glorious platters filled the dark. The feast in the great hall was memory made in light and flavor, warming long after candles died. Before the first bell of dawn rang across the courtyard, the castle kitchen was already awake. Its walls of thick stone kept the night's chill close, but inside a dozen small fires glowed where embers had been banked beneath ash. The air was scented with smoke and yeast and damp herbs, and faint light came from horn-paned windows still darkened by sleep. Soon this quiet hum would become a roaring, bustling heart of labor, but for now it stirred like some great creature waking. A scullion crept in first, barefoot and silent, to rouse the embers. He carried a small bellows and coaxed each heap of coals until a shy flame licked upward. Then came the undercooks, yawning, shrugging off cloaks, and pulling on stained linen aprons. Without a word, they set about their morning, lifting iron pots from hooks, hauling buckets of water from the courtyard pump, unwrapping loaves of bread baked in the night's deep hours. The kitchen's great hearth, wide enough to roast an ox, was soon roaring again, sparks rising to the sooted vault above. On the long central tables, light from candles flickered over the day's first tasks. Here a boy sliced onions and leeks for the stew pots. There a girl crushed garlic and herbs with a heavy pestle, the sound rhythmic and soothing. Barrels were pried open to reveal salt fish packed in brine, wheels of cheese swaddled in cloth, sacks of oats and barley for pottage. A single great cauldron hung on its iron chain over the fire, filling slowly with water drawn bucket by bucket. The chief cook entered then, tall and grave in a leather belt hung with knives. His arrival was quiet but commanding. Talk hushed as he crossed to the great table. He smelled the broth from last night, nodded once, and began issuing orders. Bread to be sliced for the household breakfast, porridge stirred and sweetened with honey, eggs to be boiled for the Lord's morning board. He inspected herbs, tasting here, sniffing there, his face unreadable but keen. Soon the kitchen woke fully. Servants hurried through side doors bearing baskets from the pantry. Cabbages, carrots, parsnips, turnips, and fragrant sprigs of thyme and rosemary. From the buttery came barrels of ale and small kegs of wine. From the larder, cuts of venison and boar hung cool and dark, a bounty from the winter's hunt. The scullions sharpened knives on whetstones, sparks flying as they worked. The air grew warmer, fragrant, alive. Outside, the castle itself stirred. The clang of the smithy echoed faintly. A cock crowed in the yard. Soon pages and servants would come trotting for platters and trenchers to carry up to the great hall. The kitchen's work was not glamorous, but it was indispensable. Without this heat and toil, the Lord's table would go bare, and the household would grow restless. Here, in the smoky heart, was the unseen strength of the castle. The first rush of the day was breakfast. Trenchers of coarse bread, steaming bowls of porridge sweetened with a drizzle of honey, soft cheese, and mugs of ale were prepared for the servants and guards. These were borne away on wooden trays by quick-footed boys who returned at once for more. Next came the Lord's own meal, finer loaves of white bread, fresh butter, boiled eggs, spiced fruit warmed in wine, and thin slices of ham. The cook himself arranged this platter, frowning over each detail before nodding it away. When the morning meal was done, the kitchen turned to greater labors. For today a hunting party was expected back by noon, and the Lord planned a feast at night. That meant whole carcasses to be prepared. A boar, already hung and bled in the larder, must be skinned and dressed. Venison haunches cut and marinated in wine and herbs. Geese plucked, their feathers flying in soft white drifts to the rush-covered floor. Apprentices worked with steady, practiced hands, chatting quietly over their knives. One corner of the kitchen belonged to the bakers. They tended great brick ovens, already hot from the night. Here dough was kneaded and folded, rolled into loaves, and slid into the glowing mouth on long paddles. The scent of rising bread filled the air, sweet and warm, a comfort to all who labored. Nearby, pies were assembled, venison and boar in rich gravies, sweet apple pies for the Lord's table, each crust carefully crimped and brushed with egg for a golden shee. Another corner was the realm of sweets. A young apprentice hovered over pans of honey and nuts, stirring slowly lest they burn. Almond milk was being ground for fine custards. Cinnamon and cloves, rare and costly, were measured out with reverence. The cook's assistant tested syrups with a drop on his nail, frowning until the thread formed just so. These delicacies would be brought out only at the feast's end, sweet and shining beneath torchlight. By midday the kitchen had become a roar of motion and sound. Fires blazed hot, cauldrons bubbled and spat, knives flashed as fish were cleaned, herbs chopped, meat scored and salted. The air was thick with scent. Wood smoke, roasting fat, wine, onions, herbs. Laughter rose from the scullions now and then, quickly hushed by the cook's sharp eye. Dogs nosed about, but were chased off with broom and shout. In one corner a boy pumped the great bellows to keep the main hearth roaring. Then came the huntsman, triumphant and mud-spattered, bearing fresh game, rabbits, pheasants, and a brace of deer. The kitchen received them like a tide. Men with cleavers stepped forward. The chief cook clapped the huntsman on the shoulder before inspecting the spoils. Soon the stone floor ran with the necessary work of butchering, quick and efficient, hands red but skilled. Hounds yelped for scraps, but got only bones too small to save. As afternoon waned, the feast began to take shape. In the roasting hearth, the boar turned slowly on an iron spit, basted with wine and herbs by a boy with long-handled ladle. Pies cooled on racks, custards quivered in their dishes. Servants ferried platters to and fro, tasting sauces under the cook's stern gaze. The great cauldron of pottage, meant for the garrison, simmered steadily with barley, carrots, and bits of salted pork. The kitchen also tended the household's daily needs beyond the feast. Trays for the ladies' solar light cakes and almond milk for her and her ladies. A covered dish for the chaplain, plain but well seasoned. Even the dungeon guards came for their rations, rough bowls of stew and hunks of bread. The cook kept track of all, shouting orders over the din with the ease of long mastery. As dusk neared, the mood sharpened. The feast was imminent. Platters of gleaming meat were lifted to the side tables. Roasted boar with apples in its jaws, venison in deep brown gravy, whole trout stuffed with herbs and lemon. Vegetables, turnips, carrots, cabbages had been boiled and dressed with butter. Great trenchers of bread were stacked high, the sweet course stood ready. Marchpane figures shaped like birds in castles, candied nuts gleaming, pies fragrant and glossy. Pages and footmen crowded the doors to the great hall, ready to bear forth the feast. The cook inspected each dish before it left, adding a final sprig of thyme, a carving cut to ease serving, a nod of approval. When the steward arrived to summon the meal, a hush fell for a moment in the kitchen. Then, with a wave, the procession began. Dish after dish, steaming and splendid, carried out to the waiting lord and guests. After the last platter departed, the kitchen exhaled as one. Some slumped on stools, wiping sweat from brows. Others began the endless task of washing pots, scouring with sand and hot water. The fires burned lower now, though one corner still glowed to keep food warm should the feast run long. The cook, silent and watchful all day, finally smiled faintly as the sounds of music and laughter drifted faintly from the hall. Late in the night, the last scraps returned, platters with bones, empty pie dishes, trenchers half-eaten. These were sorted, some scraps to the pigs, some to the poor at the gate come morning. The floors were swept once more, rushes changed, knives cleaned and set in order. By the time the castle slept, the kitchen was quiet again, smelling of wood ash and cooling bread. Only a single boy remained to tend the banked fire, so the heart of the castle would wake warm once more at dawn. The great hall wakes like a stage before a play. Torches wait unlit. Tables run the length of the room with fresh boards set on trestles. A tapestry shakes out a wrinkle and remembers winter hunts and summer rivers. Servants sweep the rushes and scatter sweet herbs. In the kitchen, yard fires are kindled in shallow pits. Spits are set like little bridges across heat. The cook walks among them with a spoon that has ruled more hours than some lords. She tests a roast with a pinch and a glance. She sets a boy to basting and a girl to turning pies, so their bottoms will be bold and not shy. The steward counts platters and cups, pewter for common tables, silver for high table. He lifts a goblet to find the last spot of cloud and rubs it clear. He marks a list for trenchers cut from yesterday's bread and sends a basket for more to the village bakehouse. Carts arrive with the field's best, greens crisp from water, carrots like torches, onions with their paper crackle. A honeycomb shines in a frame that looks like a small window into summer. The gardener stands proud and lets others do the talking. A boy from the river brings fish laid on wet moss. He names the pool where each was caught. He accepts a heel of bread and a cup of small ale. He bows to the cook as if she were the river's sister. She hides a smile because cooks enjoy being honored as kin to good water. Inside the hall, the trestles gain cloth, and then bowls, and then knives. A sprig of green sits at each place, not luxury, invitation. The minstrels tune quietly and choose songs that are to be heard while food is chewed. The steward tests a bench by sitting. The bench approves and keeps its own counsel. Roasts come in with a brief parade of steam. Pies arrive with brave lids. A cauldron of pottage is set on a sideboard where spoons can learn the taste before bowls commit. Platters of fruit shine like a small orchard at harvest. The hall smells like a farmer's pride dressed for court. Guests arrive in waves. Tenants with good boots and clean faces. Neighbors who helped with hay. Travelers who happened to pass and were told to stay. High table gathers the household with room left for those who worked hardest in the week. The lord and lady enter last and greet the kitchen with a bow before any other. Grace is spoken without argument. Bread is broken into as many hands as it'll reach. Bowls make the journey from pot to mouth with the right sort of patience. The hall learns the music of eating, a murmur like bees that have agreed on the direction of a field. A child at low table releases a laugh that springs into the rafters. The minstrels catch it and fold it into a reel that makes feet light. A man tells a story about a sheep who refused to cross a bridge and saved 6 people by insisting on another path. The hall votes to believe the story, and that makes it true. The steward watches for trouble and for hunger hiding behind shyness. He sees a woman who has outreached twice and sends a plate with roast and greens to her elbow as if the table itself had grown generous. He sees 2 boys nudge too hard and places between them a dish of pickles that demands cooperation. Second courses roll like a soft tide, a rabbit pie with thyme, roots roasted with honey until they shine, a custard that trembles and then stands brave, a bowl of berries with cream that looks like a cloud let down from its labor. Cups are lifted not for boasting, but for thanks. The Lord rises and thanks the fields by name, and the hands by number, and the ovens by temper. He invites the minstrel to sing of bridges and ferries and roads that return people safely. The song is simple and keeps its feet on the floor. People hum without meaning to. A juggler shows his practice. 3 apples, 4 wooden balls, 1 bright egg that no one expects. He finishes with the egg unbroken and returns it to the cook, who approves because eggs belong to kitchens and not to tricks. The hall enjoys the lesson. Toward the end, a quiet is made for those who worked since before dawn. The steward sets a table near the door with the best of what remains. The kitchen crew comes in with shy steps and full smiles. The hall stands for them as for a passing procession. They eat with the satisfaction of tools that know they were used well. Trenchers are gathered. Bones go to a pail for broth. Scraps go to a pail for pigs. The floor is swept and herbs scattered once more. The hall returns to its clean self with a speed that would surprise anyone who had not seen it before. The last light leaves the braziers, and the tapestries drink the shadows. The steward closes his book and thanks the bench again because gratitude wears well. The cook checks the fires and banks them. The last cup is washed and set upside down to dry. Night breathes through the empty hall. Echoes rest on beams like birds that have flown enough. Tomorrow will bring another table or another hunger. The hall is ready for both. When dawn spills pale light across the village, a different rhythm begins to sound. The quiet rasp of a saw, the hollow thud of a mallet, the gentle tap of hammer on chisel. Down a side lane or beside the market green stands the carpenter's workshop, open to the road so neighbors could watch and call greetings as they pass. The smell here is sharp and pleasant, fresh-shaved oak, resinous pine, warm beeswax.
This is the place where timber is coaxed into houses, carts, tables, doors, and countless tools that make medieval life possible.
Carpenters hold a special place in the village. Stone is slow and costly, timber is everywhere. A skilled hand could raise a barn in days, repair a bridge after flood, craft the wheels that keep trade rolling. Lords respect them, peasants rely on them, and churches call them to build roofs that shelter prayers. The carpenter's day begins while mist still hangs on fields. He sweeps sawdust from yesterday, sets out tools in patient order, and checks wood stacked under shed roofs to season. Moisture is a quiet enemy. Boards must dry months before use, else they warp and split. He runs hands over beams, feeling grain and weight, listening for creaks that warn of hidden rot. His tools are simple but precise, saws of various teeth for rip and crosscut, axes for hewing beams, adzes to smooth, planes to true edges, chisels to carve mortise and tenon, wooden mallets for gentle persuasion, iron hammers for nails when nails could be spared. Nails are dear. Often he joins with pegs and clever joints. A straight edge and chalk line mark true cuts, an auger bores clean holes. Over years, these tools become extensions of his hands, their handles worn smooth as river stones. Timber arrives by many paths. Local woods yield oak for strength, elm for wheels and hubs, ash for handles, pine and fir for boards and quick construction. Sometimes great logs float down river from distant forests, or merchants haul exotic woods, walnut, chestnut for fine work. The carpenter knows each intimately. Oak's stubborn strength, ash's spring, pine's easy cutting but quick splinter, elm's twisty grain that resists splitting but makes strong hubs. Today, perhaps, a farmer arrives, hat in hand, needing a new plow handle or repair of broken cart shaft. The carpenter listens, nods, and measures with quick eye. Soon mallet and chisel ring out as he shapes fresh wood, fitting iron straps and dowels. A wheel may need rebuilding, hubs carefully bored, spokes shaped, rims steamed and bent into perfect circle. The blacksmith will later shoe the rim with iron, but wood is the carpenter's domain. Another customer might be the village priest, wanting new pews or a crucifix carved for chapel. A merchant comes seeking sturdy chests to guard cloth. A brewer needs fresh barrel racks. Work flows from every trade. Few can prosper without the carpenter's bench. Payment may be coin, but more often is barter. Grain, ale, cloth, or promise of help when he raises a roof. In some towns, carpenters band together in guilds that guard secrets and set wages. Apprenticeships last years. A boy learns first to sweep and fetch, then to saw straight, then to join timber tight. He studies grain, moisture, weight, and the endless varieties of joinery. Dovetail, mortise and tenon, scarf and bridle. A master tests him with a finished piece, perhaps a small chest or door built flawless and true. Only then may he take work on his own. The rhythm of carpentry follows seasons. In spring, plows and wagons need repair for planting. Summer is for barns and bridges. Dry weather suits building. Autumn brings cider presses and grain bins. Winter, though cold, is tied for indoor craft, Tables, chairs, fine coffers, toys, and tools. Some carpenters travel to great projects, castle hoardings, cathedral roofs, manor halls. Others stay rooted, shaping the quiet bones of village life. Inside the shop, the work sings. Saw teeth bite with steady hiss. Plain shavings curl in soft ribbons, falling to floor in fragrant heaps. Chisels thud and tap, mallets echo. Sunbeams slant through window dusted with saw particles, making tiny golden stars. The carpenter hums under breath or teaches apprentice how to keep edge keen on whetstone. Cats sleep on wood piles. Sparrows nest in eaves. Sometimes big days come, a barn raising when neighbors gather. The carpenter directs beams pegged, posts hoisted by many hands, mallets driving home joints while women bring ale and bread. The whole community works as one. When roof finally rests in place, cheers rise and a small garland may be nailed to highest beam for luck. Such days knit village together, and the carpenter stands proud though weary. There is artistry here too. A simple door may bear carved vine or cross. A chest might be adorned with running animals or saints. Church work especially calls for beauty. Choir stalls with curling foliage, rude screens laced like lace in oak. Some masters travel far for these commissions, their names whispered in admiration. Yet even the humblest village carpenter may let his hand wander into ornament, leaving signature of craft in unseen corner. Faith touches wood. Carpenters often claim Saint Joseph as patron. A small image may stand on shelf, dusty but respected. Before raising roof or cutting beam, some whisper blessing or cross themselves. Wood seems alive. Treating it well feels near to prayer. Dangers lurk quietly. A saw can slip. A beam can fall. Nails split wood and fly. Splinters infect. Blades bite deep. Heavy timbers crush feet. Apprentices learn caution. Tie back hair. Keep hands behind saw. Never stand under lifted beam. Still, accidents happen and scars are common. Evening finds the shop calm, perfumed with resin and shavings. Tools are clean, blades wrapped, planes oiled. The carpenter sweeps slow circles, enjoying hush after long day. Outside, children play with scraps fashioned into toys. A customer comes late for finished stool. They chat while fireflies wink in dusk. Though chronicles praise stone castles and great cathedrals, most medieval life stands on timber houses, barns, bridges, carts, ships' frames, furniture, doors, wheels. Each passes under carpenter's careful hand. Without him, travel stalls, trade falters, homes collapse. His craft is quiet but everywhere. So when you picture the Middle Ages, remember this small workshop, beams stacked, saws whispering, mallets knocking. Here a man shapes forests into shelter and tools, one careful cut at a time. The carpenter's bench is the heartbeat of wood in a world built by hand. Beyond the buses of market and guildhall, at the edge of a rising cathedral or city wall, lies a world of dust and ringing iron, the stonemason's yard. Here, under open sky, men shape the bones of medieval cities, carving silent stone into arches, towers, and saints that will outlast generations. It is noisy, patient, and strangely reverent work. The yard begins at dawn. Mist still clings to half-built walls, and cold dew darkens blocks of limestone or sandstone stacked like a giant's playthings. Apprentices sweep yesterday's chips into piles, fetch fresh water, and set out mallets and chisels. Masters arrive soon after, their aprons already dusted white, eyes scanning today's plans, tracings on smooth boards, parchment drawings pinned under stones, or full-size templates scratched on plaster tracing floors. Stone arrives from distant quarries on slow carts. Horses strain under weight. Chains groan as blocks are slid down ramps. Each stone marked by quarrymen, chalk letters or mason's marks to show size and quality. Foreman inspects for flaws, hidden cracks, and doom a vault years later. Good blocks sorted by use. Heavy ashlar for walls, fine grain for carving, strong, dense stone for piers. Workspaces sprawl like outdoor workshop. Each mason claims a banker waist-high stone bench where he works. There he places block, chooses tool, and begins to shape. Mallet strikes chisel with steady rhythm, tock, 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 echoing through yard in slow music of craft. Chips fly, dust rises pale in morning light. Tools are simple but many. Point chisels rough out bulk. Tooth chisels leave grooved surface. Flat chisels smooth. Mallets of beech or hornbeam drive force. Compasses and rules mark measures. Plumb lines and levels check true. Wooden templates trace curves of arch or leaf of capital. Every master carries set of tools wrapped in leather, treasured and well kept. Hierarchy shapes yard. Master mason oversees design and structure, mathematician, artist, engineer. He calculates thrust of arches, weight of vaults, safe height of walls. Beneath him, journeymen do skilled carving and setting. Apprentices haul stone, sharpen tools, learn by imitation. Each hopes to one day carve masterpiece or earn mark on great project. Some stones are mere blocks for walls, others bloom into art. You may see a carver bent over angel's wing, each feather slowly coaxed from cold grain, another shaping grotesque face to grin from gutter. Capitals sprout leaves, vines, and saints. Tracery for windows curls delicate as lace. Days and weeks may go into single piece. The yard has its rhythm of teamwork. When a vault rises, cranes and treadwheels hoist shaped stones skyward. Setters on scaffolding guide each into place with shouted orders and guiding ropes. Below, masons cut keystones to perfect wedge. A mistake high up can crack arch, so master checks constantly. Noise blends with talk. Masons swap news of guild, fair wages, safe quarries. They tease apprentices, sing ballads between hammer blows. Some whistle to pace strokes, others work in quiet meditation. Dust coats hair and beards white, leather aprons stiff with lime and sweat. Food breaks simple. Bread, cheese, onions, sometimes ale brought in earthen jugs. Men eat perched on stone piles, laughing, discussing cathedral progress. Master may sketch next stage in dust or on board while they chew. Evenings see tools sharpened and stored. Some go to tavern, others home bone-tired but proud. Faith underpins labor. Each morning some yards pray before work, especially on great churches. Builders see themselves raising house for God, even those not devout feel awe. Many scratch small cross on stone before final strike, hoping for strength and safety. Saints of builders, often St. Thomas or St. Blaise, invoked quietly. Seasons bring challenge. Winter freezes stone and numbs fingers. Fires burn in braziers, but dust turns to icy paste. Summer bakes yard until sweat runs and lime burns skin. Rain halts little unless torrential scaffolds slick, but work pushes on. Great works can take lifetimes. Patience is part of every mason's soul. Guild rules protect craft. Only trained masons may cut stone, secrets of geometry kept close. Journeymen carry mason's mark, personal symbol chiseled on each finished piece, both signature and record for pay. These marks still spotted on ancient cathedrals today. Pride runs deep. To carve a vault rib true or sculpt saintly face is legacy. Many know their work may stand long after they die, anonymous but enduring. Some masters leave name on cornerstone, most leave only mark and silent strength of wall. Evenings the yard quiets but doesn't sleep. Cats prowl among chips. Night watchman tends brazier. Sometimes master stays late with lamp, drawing next flying buttress or daring spire. He dreams shapes no one yet built, trusting hands of his men and patience of stone. So when you look at a medieval cathedral or castle, remember this dusty yard, the clang and chatter, white-haired craftsmen guiding young hands, designs traced full scale on floor, and blocks patiently tamed into beauty. It was a world of labor and quiet genius, giving shape to dreams in enduring stone. Before first light, the streets near the market square are silent except for the faint slap of water against cobbles where someone has emptied a bucket. As the sky pales, a new sound stirs. The creak of shutters, the rustle of bolts of cloth being lifted from storage, the muted thud of looms slowing to rest after a night's work. In towns across medieval Europe, there is usually a cloth hall or weaving quarter, a cluster of workshops and long open halls where wool and linen, sometimes silk, become garments, banners, sails, and riches. Cloth is life. It warms bodies, marks rank, fills coffers. Kings levy taxes in cloth. Guilds guard its secrets. Distant lands crave fine Flemish wool or Italian silk. A peasant's coarse tunic and a bishop's glowing cope both begin as fiber spun and woven. Behind these fabrics lies a world of hands, colors, and endless quiet labor. The day here begins early. Weavers often work by candlelight before dawn, the gentle clack of treadles and shuttles echoing in still streets. In a small workshop, a man or woman pushes shuttle through shed, beats weft into place, presses foot on treadle to lift next set of warp threads. The rhythm is steady and hypnotic. Clack, thump, clack, thump. A song of labor that neighbors know as well as church bells. Outside, merchants arrive with wagons of raw wool from nearby sheep pastures. Great bales, greasy and smelling of lanolin, are unloaded. The first step is washing and carding. Women and children often help, scouring dirt and grease in warm water, then combing fibers into smooth, airy rolls. Spinners sit at wheel or simple distaff, twisting fiber into strong thread. Spinning is slow but constant. Every household contributes, and whole streets may hum with wheels. Once yarn is ready, it must be dyed if color is desired. Dyers are a world unto themselves, working with vats of plant and insect colors. Woad gives blue, madder, red, weld, yellow, oak galls, black. Rare imported cochineal or kermes yield brilliant crimson. Saffron and indigo come from far-off lands and cost dearly. The dyer's yard smells sharp and strange, part garden, part alchemy. Cloth or yarn hangs dripping from poles, wind whipping vibrant banners in the air. Apprentices tread vats barefoot to press color deep, hands stained blue or red for weeks. Dyeing is secretive and regulated. Recipes are guarded. Guilds enforce rules. Some plants must be prepared with stale urine or fermented solutions. Heat and timing matter. A poor dyer ruins precious wool and risks guild wrath. Yet when done well, colors sing. Deep blues fit for nobles, warm russets for townsfolk, sunlit gold for merchants' wives. The cloth hall itself is a long covered building, often in the market square. Inside, bolts of finished cloth are measured, inspected, and sold. Guild inspectors, sometimes called searchers, check weave tightness and thread count. Defects bring fines. Excellence earns reputation and higher price. Merchants from distant cities walk the aisles, fingers trailing over smooth broadcloth or fine linen, bargaining in murmured French, Italian, or Low German. Scales and measures clink, scribes tally transactions, coins change hands in quiet ruster. Merchants from distant cities walk the aisles, fingers trailing over smooth broadcloth or fine linen, bargaining in murmured French, Italian, or Low German. Scales and measures clink, scribes tally transactions, coins change hands in quiet ruster. Around this central hall cluster many smaller trades. Fullers pound cloth in water and soap to thicken it, trampling or hammering rhythmically. Shearmen trim nap to smooth finish. Tailors cut and stitch. Embroiderers add gold and silk. Dyers reheat vats. Carders comb fleece. The whole quarter smells of wet wool, dye plants, soap, and sweat, with sweet wafts from bakeries or alehouses nearby. Guilds rule the world. To weave in town, one must join the Weavers' Guild. To dye, the Dyers' Guild. To finish, the Fullers' Guild. They set wages, protect secrets, care for widows and apprentices. Guild banners hang bright during festivals, and their processions fill streets with proud craftsmen, each bearing tool of trade. Young apprentices serve 7 years or more before earning right to call themselves master. Exams may include weaving a perfect sample or presenting a dyed length of cloth without flaw. For apprentices, life is long hours of menial work, winding bobbins, sweeping floors, carrying water, tending fires under dye vats. Yet slowly they learn to feel tension of warp, to hear when shuttle moves cleanly, to judge color by eye alone. A good master teaches not only craft, but honesty in measure and dealing. Cloth trade links villages to the wider world. English and Spanish sheep grow fine fleeces. Flemish towns weave them into coveted broadcloth. Italian merchants carry silks and velvets. German towns dye and finish. Caravans of bales move overland. Cogs sail with holds full of fabric. Wars are fought over wool routes. Kings court weavers for taxes and glory. A bolt of rich scarlet to equal a year's wages. A merchant may build fortune on clever buying and selling of textiles. Yet in the small workshop, life stays simple. A weaver rises, lights candle, oils loom, and works hour after hour, feet dancing on treadles, hands smooth with use. Wife or daughter spins nearby, son oils gear teeth, and apprentice sweeps. Outside, neighbors bring gossip and food. Bells mark prayer times. Sometimes the loom pauses while family attends mass, then resumes its steady song. Seasons mark weaving too. Winter is busy with fields quiet, families spin and weave indoors, looms thumping behind shuttered windows. Spring brings shearing and fresh wool to wash. Summer may slow if heat drives dyers outside, but also fills markets with travelers. Autumn is prime trade tight. Fairs bustle, merchants stock for winter. Through it all, the cloth hall thrives, its stalls full, its inspectors busy. Superstition lives among weavers. Some tie small charms to looms for smooth weaving. Some cross themselves before starting warp. It is said a spider's web found on beam brings luck. Others keep silent while drawing first thread. Words might tangle work. Dyers whisper prayers to saints when mixing rare colors. Apprentices knock wood before testing vat heat. Festivals transform the cloth quarter. Guild banners wave, looms are silent, while masters parade in bright tunics of their own making. Towns may crown a guild king or honor a famed weaver. Markets brim with vivid cloth hung like banners. Reds, blues, greens, black as raven wing. Minstrels sing, ale flows, customers bargain loudly. For one day the hard, quiet craft becomes pageant and pride. The social web here is strong. Weavers know each other's families, share tools in need, lend thread or dye. Rivalries exist, but so does solidarity. If fire threatens one workshop, others rush with buckets. Widows of masters may be supported, orphans apprenticed. A guild funeral can fill streets with solemn tread, looms quiet in respect. At evening the cloth hall grows hushed. Merchants tally coins, scribes close ledgers, weavers carry finished lengths home or deliver to hall for inspection next day. Dye vats cool, steam rising ghost-like into night. The air smells faintly sweet with lanolin and herbs. Families gather to eat, some still spin by hearth light. In upper rooms, looms rest like silent animals, warp threads gleaming pale in lamplight. Though chronicles celebrate knights and kings, it is the weavers and dyers who clothe the world. Their hands turn sheep's fleece and flax stalks into beauty and warmth. They give color to processions, dignity to merchants, finery to brides, banners to armies, sails to ships. Quietly, steadily, they weave history's very fabric. So if you wander a medieval town, listen for the clack of looms and smell of wet wool, watch merchants fingering bolts in the long covered hall. Somewhere behind shuttered door, a weaver works late, shaping threads into cloth that will travel farther than he ever will. This is the humble, endless labor of the cloth hall, patient, skilled, and vital to life. The Town Watch at Night. The sun has sunk behind the gables, and the day's last merchants pull down shutters. Candles glimmer in narrow windows, and the smell of hot tallow drifts into streets cooling with night air. Then, slowly, the town belongs to a different company, the Watch. Cloaked and lantern-bearing, they move through winding lanes to keep peace, guard against fire, and remind all that the city still breathes after dark. Evening begins with curfew bell. Its slow toll echoes from church tower or town hall, summoning townsfolk indoors. Doors shut, gates close with deep groan of iron and oak. Inns and alehouses stay open longer but quieter, shutters drawn though laughter seeps out. On most nights, citizens expect to stay put. Only watchmen and late travelers stir outside. The Watch gathers in small guardhouse near gate or market square. Stone building, heavy door, bench and table within. Hooks hold spears, halberds and lanterns. Small hearth smoulders for warmth. Captain calls roll, many are townsmen doing duty by rota, some hired sergeants more seasoned. Each takes weapon, horn or rattle to sound alarm, and cloaks against damp. Lanterns lit from single hearth flame glow dim amber. Some are horn-paneled boxes, others open iron cages. They swing gently as men step into cobbled dark. Boots echo, breath smokes. At first silence, but soon watch breaks into pairs or trio, each set to patrol assigned streets, walls, or riverside docks. Tasks are humble yet vital. They check doors and shutters, ensuring none left ajar for thieves or fire. They watch for unlicensed drinkers or gamblers in corners, and for any stranger without lodging papers. They sniff for smoke where no hearth should burn so late. Fire is town's terror, able to consume whole quarters. Buckets and axes carried for first response. Walls and gates get close care. Sentinels pace battlements, lanterns shielded against wind. They scan fields for bandits, listen for hooves or carts after hours. At river, they check barges tied up, counting loads to prevent smuggling. Keys to gates hang heavy at captain's belt. Once locked, few exceptions made until dawn. Some watchmen are gruff veterans, others nervous apprentices or simple townsmen fulfilling yearly duty. They mutter to stay awake, share bread and ale when allowed, stamp feet in cold, yet even in boredom there is purpose. Every house sleeping safe depends on their rounds. Encounters dot their route. A late doctor hurries to patient's home, watch escorts him safely. A drunken reveller stumbles from alehouse, singing they steer him home, or to sell if rowdy. Stray dogs follow, hoping for scraps. Sometimes they find thieves, quick hands at shutter, shadow slipping over wall. Horn blows, chase breaks quiet, neighbors peek from windows, and thief is dragged to guardhouse. Superstition walks with watch. They cross themselves at dark alleys, murmur prayer passing gallows or plague pits. Old tales warn of spirits, werewolves, witches. Some men carry charms, tiny cross, saint medal, sprig of rowan. Yet fear rarely stops them, duty stronger. In winter their work is harshest. Snow crunches under boots, breath clouds white, fingers numb on spear shafts. Lantern light seems swallowed by fog, but they push on. If fire sparked in frozen night or raiders struck at gate, delay could mean ruin. The guardhouse provides small refuge. Between circuits, men warm hands at hearth, share flask or stale bread, tell jokes to keep eyes open. Captain logs events, fires doused, strangers questioned, arrests made. If bell rings alarm, fire, riot, attack, all rush out armed and shouting. Markets by day leave ghost smells at night. Stale fish, spilled wine, crushed herbs. Streets echo only with distant dogs and drip of water. From workshops come faint clang or whir where someone works late despite curfew. Watch may knock to warn or fine. Churches loom pale. Saints' statues catch lantern gleam as patrols pass. Occasionally night brings wonder. A traveling minstrel sings softly to gain shelter. Watchmen pause to listen. Pilgrims arrive late. Lanterns bobbing, they are guided to Abbey Guest House. A comet flares in sky. Patrol stops to marvel. Town asleep misses such moments. Only Watch sees them. When dawn finally grays sky, Watch returns weary but satisfied. Gates unbarred, merchants stir, bakers light ovens, life resumes. Captain records quiet night or small theft caught, then dismisses men home to sleep. Another band will take dusk's duty. The town watch may seem simple, yet it stood between safety and chaos. In a world without police as we know them, this band of lantern-bearing citizens and soldiers was the thin thread keeping fire at bay, guarding trade, and letting families rest. So picture them when you imagine medieval night, cloaked figures in flickering light, footsteps echoing through silent lanes, keeping unseen vigil so the city could dream untroubled. The town after dark is a different creature than the one that bustles beneath the sun. Gone are the hawkers and the clatter of carts. The smith's hammer is silent, the market stalls folded like sleeping birds. Yet the streets are wrought dead. They breathe in a slower, softer way, lit by scattered lanterns and watched over by quiet feet. At the great west gate, the watchmen make their rounds. Two men in plain leather jerkins, hoods pulled up against the chill, carry lanterns whose flames throw long bars of gold across the cobbles. Their pikes tap gently with each step. They pause to check the bolts on the gate, glance toward the road that fades into moonlight, then turn back into the winding streets. Their talk is low and companionable, broken now and then by a soft laugh or the scrape of a boot. Lantern-lashed bite pools in doorways where shutters are tight, some glow warm, hinting at families still awake by their hearth's quiet talk, late mending, a mother soothing a wakeful baby. Others are dark and silent. A faint smell of bread lingers from the baker's row. Somewhere a night bird calls from the church roof. The air is cool, touched with damp from the river that runs near the lower wall. Cats own these streets after curfew. They slip like smoke from alley to alley, tails high, eyes catching lantern glow before vanishing. One perches on a barrel and washes a paw, utterly at ease. Another darts up a stair, chasing a mouse bold enough to scurry across the stone. The watchmen pay them no mind. Cats know more of night than any human and keep the grain stores safe. By the square, a lone tallow candle burns in the window of the scribe's shop. Inside, a man bends over parchment, the scratch of his quill just audible if one listens closely. He is copying a deed that must be ready by morning. His ink-stained hands move steadily in the hush. Outside, the watchmen pass and tip their hoods in silent greeting. He nods without looking up, lost in his work. The inn is quieter now, but not asleep. A glow spills through its shutters, and the low rumble of voices leaks out when the door opens. A pair of merchants leaving late stand in the lane to settle accounts, coins chiming softly. They mount their mules and ride off toward the south gate, lanterns swinging. The inn door closes behind them, and music, faint fiddle, gentle drum, floats out for a breath before dying away again. Farther on, in a crooked lane, the midwife's house shows a single bright lamp. Tonight she tends a birth. Two neighbor women wait on the bench outside, shawls tight, whispering prayers while they peer at the silent stars. Now and then a faint cry sounds from within, quickly soothed. The watchmen pass more slowly here, their faces softening. They will not knock unless called. Life and death walk together in the midwife's rooms, and the town respects the threshold. Near the river quarter, the cobbler's shop, dark by day with work, shows a tiny flame in a back window. Old Gervais cannot sleep, and so mend boots under lamplight, his needle flashing now and then. The night is his companion. He says it keeps him company better than people. A single loaf and a pot of ale stand on his bench, forgotten as he stitches. The smell of leather and beeswax floats out to the street each time a breeze nudges the ill-fitting shutters. The watchmen pause on the stone bridge that crosses the dark water. Here the town feels wide and quiet. The river slips below with hardly a sound, catching moonlight in slow silver strokes. Beyond, meadows lie pale and misted. One man sets down his pike and stretches his shoulders. The other lights a pipe, the glow tiny against the dark. They speak softly of home, of wives and children sleeping, of fields to plant come spring. Their breath hangs in the cool air. Back within the walls, the tanner's lane is silent now, though the day's sharp smells still cling. Hides hang dark and still where they swung in the afternoon breeze. A single lantern marks the night watch post. A young guard drowses there, jerking awake when footsteps sound. The older watchman claps his shoulder kindly before moving on. Night training is long and often lonely. A stray dog trots along the gutters, nose to the stones. It stops at a doorway where warm bread scent seeps through and sits hopefully, tail sweeping the cobbles. Somewhere a door opens just enough for a scrap to be tossed out, and the dog catches it with silent gratitude before vanishing into shadow. Such quiet kindnesses stitch the night together as surely as lanterns. At the heart of town, the church looms dark but peaceful. Only the sanctuary lamp burns within, a tiny steadfast light before the altar. Sometimes travelers slip in at night to pray. Tonight the nave is empty, but the great stone walls hold the memory of voices and bells, and the air smells of wax and cold stone. The watchmen bow their heads briefly as they pass. A baker's boy emerges from a side door, yawning to feed the morning ovens. He carries an armful of kindling, his bare feet silent. He nods shyly at the watchman before slipping back in. Soon the first bread will begin to bake, and its smell will drift into the streets long before dawn. Night and morning overlap here, one giving way quietly to the other. Down a quieter alley, a lamp glows in an upper window, an old scholar bent over his books. He rubs tired eyes but cannot leave the chapter unfinished. Beside him a small brazier glows, and a sleepy cat sprawls across the desk, tail twitching. The scholar mutters softly to himself and scratches another note with quill and ink. Outside, the lane holds its breath, respecting his lonely midnight study. The watch rounds are nearly done. The men return toward the gate, checking latches and doors as they go. They pause to share a flask of watered wine, warming hands at its small heat. They have seen no trouble tonight, no fire, no thief, no sudden call for aid, and for that they give thanks in their own rough way. One spits into the gutter, one whispers a prayer. Both seem content. As they walk, They pass a single candle burning low in the window of the candlemaker's house. Same shop that worked late into evening. Its glow is small now, but steady. Inside, the master sleeps with tomorrow's stock cooling on racks, while his apprentice dreams of perfect tapers. The watchmen smile faintly. They know the worth of such simple light. Elsewhere, shutters shift as sleepers turn, a baby whimpers and is hushed. An owl glides along the roofline. A faint drizzle begins, soft as breath, making the cobbles glimmer under lantern beams. The cats melt away to drier perches. The night smells suddenly of stone and rain and distant bread. At the west gate, the watchmen climb to the parapet and look out across dark fields. No riders come, no fires burn. The world seems safe for this one fragile stretch of hours. They lean on the cold stone and watch mist rise from the river, content in their duty. Below, the town sleeps on, trusting in walls and wakeful eyes. Soon the first thin light will touch the east sky, and the cocks will crow. Bakers will stoke their ovens in earnest, milkers will lead cows to the yard, and the streets will fill again with carts and calls. But for now the city rests, wrapped in its own breath, held safe by lantern glow, by careful steps, by small kindnesses unseen. The watchmen turn and begin their final circuit, lanterns swinging, boots soft on wet stone. Behind shuttered windows, dreams deepen. Cats curl tighter, dogs sigh and sleep. The rain whispers on the tiles, steady and kind. In this medieval night, ordinary and unhurried, the town slumbers under a quiet watch, every flame and every heart lending a little light against the dark.